They don't fear the loud or the dramatic. They don't fear the ones who shout, posture, or demand attention. They fear the man who walks in without needing to prove himself, the one whose energy shifts the room before a single word is spoken, the man who has mastered the one thing most people never do, his inner world. He is dangerous not because he talks big, but because he thinks with precision. He responds instead of reacts. He sees the storm and walks calmly through it, not because he is numb, but because he has made peace with every part of himself. That kind of stillness is terrifying to the undisciplined. Most people are prisoners of their emotions, slaves to their impulses, and puppets of their circumstances. They flinch, they doubt, they question, and then they fold. But the man who has mastered his inner voice does not fold, he decides. And when he decides, there's no fallback. He doesn't wait for the world to give him permission to rise. He gave himself permission the moment he realized that the battlefield was not out there, it was inside. That is the silent weapon, the weapon they never taught you about, the one hidden beneath noise, fear, and ego. It is not physical, it is not public, and it does not boast, but it commands. You've felt it before, haven't you? That inner war. You've walked into a room and questioned your value. You've felt momentum and self-sabotaged right before the breakthrough. You've wanted more, but played smaller because your identity didn't match your ambition. You've had the dream in your heart, but doubt in your head. That's not because you're weak. That's because no one taught you that mastery starts in silence. They taught you to chase results instead of identity. They told you to set goals, but they never told you who you have to become to reach them. The truth is, success isn't something you pursue, it's something you align with. And alignment doesn't start with effort, it starts with identity. Who you believe you are in the dark will always outweigh what you try to prove in the light. That's why your results are inconsistent. Not because you don't work hard, but because the voice underneath your effort is fragmented. You've been operating on a loop that says, "I hope it works," when you should be operating from, "It's already mine." You've been begging the world to validate you, when you should be walking like the decision's already been made. The man who masters the silent weapon no longer plays the external game of approval. He doesn't chase applause, likes, followers, or permission. He builds his future in private, then lets the results speak for him. He's not moved by emotion. He uses emotion. He's not afraid of the void. He enters the void and listens for truth. He no longer fights for his limitations. He kills them. And from their ashes, he constructs a new version of himself, one that does not need to be hyped up every morning to believe in his mission. He wakes up, looks himself in the mirror, and remembers who he is. Napoleon Hill called it accurate thought, the ability to think clearly without interference, distortion, or emotional fog, the power to direct the mind rather than be directed by it. And this is where most people lose at the level of thought, not action. Thought. They act without clarity, speak without inner authority, and move without direction. But the one who thinks accurately, who speaks to his subconscious with intention, he becomes unstoppable, because he has removed the need for external motivation. He has built an engine inside. The average person waits for proof. The rare one decides and makes proof follow. They fear the one who doesn't flinch because he's not guessing. He's remembering. Remembering that he already carries the power, that his belief system is not a mirror of the world, but a blueprint for it. And that blueprint, it's either building you or breaking you. There is no neutral. Every day you wake up and speak, act, and think in alignment with an identity. The only question is, did you choose that identity or inherit it? This is your turning point. This is the moment where your old belief system cracks. You don't need hype. You don't need 100 reasons to begin. You just need one moment of stillness to say, this version of me is no longer welcome here. You're not just changing habits, you're rewriting code. You're uninstalling a weak mindset and replacing it with a new operating system. One where belief is not a wish, it's a weapon. One where calm is not confusion, it's command. one where silence isn't emptiness, it's strategy. From this point forward, you stop trying to impress, and you start learning to impose. You stop over-explaining and start executing. You stop leaking power through doubt and indecision, and you start containing it like a flame behind the eyes. Your presence becomes heavier, your voice more deliberate, your mind more focused, and when they ask you what changed, you won't need to answer. They'll feel it, because real power doesn't speak, it radiates. This is not motivation. This is a mental reset. The moment your nervous system begins to recalibrate, the second your internal dialogue shifts from hesitation to conviction, this is where average dies and authority is born. From now on, every thought that does not align with power, clarity, and forward motion is rejected. You are not here to wonder. You are not here to hope. You are here to remember that you already carry the blueprint for domination. It was just buried under noise, and today you silence that noise. Today you reinstall the truth. They will feel the difference before they understand it. They will ask why you're quieter, sharper, more disciplined, more selective, and you won't owe them an explanation, because the man who has mastered the silent weapon does not need to justify his presence. He is the justification. From this moment on, you are no longer asking the world to give you a sign. You are the sign. You are no longer chasing clarity. You are choosing it. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are the permission. This is the reset. Your subconscious doesn't care what's true. It listens to what's repeated. Let that settle. Everything you've believed about your potential, your worth, your limits, it wasn't installed by truth, it was installed by repetition. What you heard as a child, what you whispered to yourself after every failure, what the world echoed back when you were still forming your sense of self, those weren't facts. They were frequencies, played so many times they became your internal soundtrack. But here's the secret. The mind can be rewritten. That soundtrack can be deleted and replaced, and the tool to do it is the same one that installed it: repetition. Hill called it autosuggestion, the deliberate, conscious feeding of thoughts into the subconscious mind. He didn't invent it, he revealed it. Ford used it. Edison swore by it. Schwab implemented it like ritual. They didn't rely on hype or mood swings. They relied on mental command, because when you speak with authority to your subconscious, it doesn't argue, it records, it listens, and over time it begins to obey. Not because the outer world has changed, but because you have. The external begins to mirror the internal. That's the law. That's the code. Most people live by accident. You're going to live by design. Autosuggestion is not about wishful thinking. It's about identity programming. When you speak the words "I am," you are setting coordinates in your mental GPS, and the subconscious will steer you through emotion, through intuition, through perception, toward the identity you declare. Say, "I'm not good at business" long enough, and your actions will follow that script. Say, "I always find a way" long enough, and your nervous system will build resilience to match. This is why you can't joke about your limitations. You can't casually speak doubt into your atmosphere. You can't say things like "I'm terrible at that," or "I never figure it out" without consequence, because your subconscious does not understand sarcasm. It doesn't discern humor from truth. It just stores and executes. Now think about this. If every thought you speak programs your subconscious, and your subconscious drives 95% of your decisions, what happens when you become deliberate about what you feed it? Everything changes. You stop reacting. You start creating. You stop asking if you're good enough, and you begin commanding your reality with the voice of someone who knows, not someone who hopes, someone who has already decided. That's where high-performance mindset begins, not in effort, but in identity clarity. Hill wrote, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." That line has been quoted 1,000,000 times, but most people forget the key word: believe. The mind can conceive a dream all day long, but if the subconscious doesn't believe it, the actions will never align. You'll get halfway and stall. You'll feel inspired and then self-sabotage, because belief is the bridge between vision and action. Without it, you're standing on a cliff with no way across. But here's the twist. Belief is not found, it's installed. You install belief through repetition, through declaration, through emotional intensity fused with spoken identity. That means no more vague goals, no more hoping. From now on, everything you speak to your subconscious is specific, emotional, and authoritative. You don't say, I hope I get rich. You say, I am the kind of man who attracts wealth because I solve problems with power. You don't say, I want confidence. You say, I radiate certainty because I trust my preparation. Every morning, before the noise, before the doubts creep in, you speak to yourself like a king commissioning his army. You speak like the battle is already won. You speak like the blueprint has already been printed, because it has. You just haven't aligned with it yet. Charles Schwab once said, "The man who wins is the man who thinks he can, not the man with the best plan, not the man with the most resources, the man whose mind is already aligned with the outcome." That's not just optimism. That's neurological priming. When you speak belief into the nervous system, your body begins to respond with confidence, composure, and clarity. And guess what happens? People feel it. Opportunities feel it. Your decisions reflect it. And the external world conforms. But none of that can happen if you're speaking like a victim. You don't get to say, I'm overwhelmed every day, and expect mental clarity. You don't get to say, it's hard for me, and expect effortless performance. You don't get to casually identify with mediocrity and expect mastery. Words are portals, and every time you speak, you're either reinforcing the old identity or building the new one. So let me be clear. From this point forward, you are no longer allowed to repeat anything that doesn't serve your future. You don't get to vent for comfort. You speak for power. You don't describe your circumstances. You declare your identity. That is the new standard. That is the mindset of every man who ever created something immortal. Ford didn't wonder if it was possible. He demanded the impossible. When his engineers told him it couldn't be done, he said, "Produce it anyway." Why? Because his subconscious wasn't waiting on their limitations. It was already locked on his vision. You must become that decisive, that unreasonable, that unapologetically aligned with your new identity, that the old you suffocates from lack of attention. You can't serve both. You can't speak power in the morning and self-pity by noon. Your subconscious is always listening, so give it something divine to work with. This is how belief is rewired. Not once, not on a good day, but daily. With intentional, emotional, identity-focused repetition, you become your dominant internal command. That's it. That's the entire game. So here's your command. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you let the world tell you who you are, before fear can whisper its favorite lie, you look yourself in the mirror and you speak these words out loud with no hesitation. I know who I am. I know what I carry. I lead my mind. I master my emotion. I create my world. I do not speak weakness into my atmosphere. I am the cause, not the effect. My identity is power. My belief is law. And I speak as if it's already done. Say that every day, not once, not when you feel like it, every single day, until your voice becomes a signal to your nervous system, until hesitation dies, until doubt starves, until the world bends to the energy of a man who has already decided. You are not repeating affirmations. You are installing identity. There comes a moment when you must stop negotiating with the old version of yourself. You've spoken the new identity. You've repeated the new command. But now, you face the most brutal line in the sand. Decision, not the kind you whisper to yourself in private and abandon in pressure. I'm talking about the kind of decision that burns the bridge behind you and says, this is who I am now. There is no going back. Because here's the truth that most never confront. You cannot serve two identities. One must die. You don't get to claim power and keep your comfort. You don't get to reach for greatness while clinging to the habits that numb you. You don't get to walk into a new season while dragging the corpses of indecision, laziness, and self-doubt behind you. This is war. And in war, half commitment is death. The reason most people never rise isn't because they lack talent. It's because they keep leaving the door cracked open to the old self. They keep trying success instead of committing to it. They treat identity like an outfit, not an operating system. So the moment pressure hits, they retreat. The moment it gets inconvenient, they shrink. The moment it gets hard, they blame timing, talent, or trauma. But a man who has burned the bridge, he doesn't retreat. He rises. There is no comfort to return to, no plan B, no other version of self waiting patiently in the background. He made the final decision, and that decision unlocked an unstoppable force: identity permanence. When Hernán Cortés landed in Veracruz in 1519 to conquer the Aztec Empire, he gave an order that shifted history: burn the ships. Why? Because as long as the ships existed, retreat was possible. Safety was an option. The old world could be returned to, but once the ships were gone, the only direction was forward. That's not strategy. That's identity warfare. You must do the same. If you keep keeping the door open to who you used to be, that identity will keep calling you home. The identity that hit snooze. The one that hesitated to speak power. The one that waited for approval before executing. The one that asked life for permission instead of declaring direction. That version has to go. Not gradually. Not someday. Now. Because every day you hesitate to kill it, you keep your power on a leash. Napoleon Hill wrote, "The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too." You think the world responds to talent. It doesn't. It responds to energy. Energy that's rooted in clarity, in commitment, in decision. When a man decides fully, the atmosphere shifts. People notice something different, not just in what he says, but in how he carries himself. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't explain. He moves with certainty, because he is no longer choosing who to be. He already is. That's what separates the 1% from the rest. Not knowledge, not even work ethic, but an unshakable refusal to negotiate identity. You can give a man all the tools, all the books, all the tactics, but if he still sees himself as weak, unsure, or unworthy, he will sabotage every opportunity that knocks, because identity always wins. So how do you burn the bridge? You remove the fallback. You uninstall the excuses. You erase the options that once gave you escape. You stop saying if this doesn't work, and you start saying this is the only way it works. You remove the language of the old self. You kill phrases like "I'll try," "we'll see," "maybe someday," "when I'm ready," and "once I have more clarity." Those are the mantras of the indecisive. They weaken your energy, your posture, and your presence. Burning the bridge means deciding who you are, not based on evidence, but based on vision. It means speaking the identity aloud, even when your results haven't caught up. It means choosing power in private, when no one's watching, and letting that private authority become your default state. No theatrics, no need to announce, just presence, just pressure, just power. Andrew Carnegie didn't wait until the world believed in him. He moved as if the world already did. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times, but didn't change his identity to failure. He stayed committed to inventor. Henry Ford was mocked for trying to build an engine that didn't exist, but he decided it was possible before anyone else did. That's the pattern. Decision before validation. You want validation, you'll always be at the mercy of the world. You want domination, make the decision, and make it final. There's a moment where the pain of staying the same becomes louder than the fear of change. That's the spark. That's where identity evolution ignites. And once it does, you don't stop to look back. You don't ask the old version for permission. You don't get nostalgic for the habits that kept you small. You choose, and then you reinforce that choice every single day with your thoughts, your posture, your words, and your execution. You are not here to try. You are not here to test the waters. You are here to take territory. You are here to become the man the world whispers about, not because of what you said, but because of what you decided. So from this moment forward, hesitation is no longer a language you speak. You no longer flirt with your potential. You marry it. You lock into it. You burn every escape route back to the version of you who waited, wavered, and wondered. That version of you is gone, not with drama, not with noise, but with certainty. Say it now. Say it loud. Say it from the deepest part of your being. I've already decided. I've already chosen who I am. I've already become what I've declared. I do not retreat. I do not stall. I do not serve two masters. The old me is dead. The bridge is burned. The future is mine, and I will walk into it without apology, hesitation, or doubt. You don't say that once. You say it until it becomes your heartbeat. Say it again. I've already decided. Say it again. I've already decided. Say it again, until the old identity knows it's no longer welcome, because from now on you don't try. You move like it's done. You don't rise alone. You rise with the energy you allow around you, and most people, unknowingly, are trapped inside atmospheres designed to keep them small. You've spoken your new identity. You've burned the bridge to the old self. But if your environment still speaks the language of doubt, weakness, gossip, and comfort, it will drag you back every single time. Not because you're not strong enough, but because identity is contagious, and your environment is always whispering to your subconscious, "This is who we are." Napoleon Hill said, "Every mind needs friendly contact with other minds, for food of expansion and growth." This wasn't a passing quote, it was a core law of power. He called it the mastermind principle. Not friendship, not familiarity, but intentional alliance. A circle built not on proximity, but on purpose. Alignment, not association. Because the average mind adapts to what surrounds it. The uncommon mind chooses it. You can be disciplined in private, but if your circle is rooted in distraction, doubt, and limitation, it will infect you. This isn't personal, it's physics. Energy transfers. Mindsets echo. Standards collapse when not reinforced by proximity. The people you let near you are speaking into your future, whether you realize it or not. Their habits influence yours. Their urgency, or lack of it, shapes your timeline. Their language builds your belief system. So you must start asking one question, ruthlessly and repeatedly: does this person multiply my mindset or mute it? Most never ask this. They let history dictate proximity. They keep people around who are familiar, not aligned. They remain available to conversations that cost them power. They feel guilty removing access from those who no longer match their mission. But the man who understands identity warfare knows better. He guards his atmosphere like a sacred chamber, because he knows that what enters his field enters his future. You need a new standard now, a declaration that governs every interaction. If you do not multiply my power, you do not belong in my presence. This isn't arrogance, it's stewardship. It's protecting your highest frequency. Your environment is either reinforcing your next level identity or reactivating the self you've already buried. Look around you. Who speaks to your vision, not your history? Who holds you accountable to the identity you declared, not the behavior you've outgrown? Who sharpens your mind, tightens your speech, and expects more from you than you've dared expect from yourself? If no one fits that description, you are not in a mastermind. You are in a comfort zone. And no empire, no transformation, no radical abundance ever came out of a comfort zone dressed up as loyalty. When Hill studied Carnegie, Ford, Edison, and Schwab, he found a pattern: none of them walked alone. They were surrounded by minds that matched their standard and elevated their thinking. Their circles were curated. No wasted words, no casual energy. Every relationship served expansion. That wasn't coincidence. It was design. You don't stumble into powerful circles. You attract them when your identity matches the frequency. If you want elevated minds, you must become one. You must speak vision before anyone hears you. You must walk in identity before anyone validates you. You must carry the energy of one who belongs at the table, long before you're invited to sit. The mastermind isn't a place, it's a vibration, and when you rise to it, others will find you. Not because you chased them, but because your energy called them. Until then, there's a sacred task in front of you. Clean your environment, ruthlessly. Every object in your space, every account you follow, every voice you listen to, every conversation you entertain, all of it is programming your subconscious. You may be saying affirmations daily, but if your phone is feeding you noise, if your room is cluttered with chaos, if your messages are filled with gossip, you are sending your mind mixed signals. You're declaring transformation while swimming in the atmosphere of the untransformed. And your subconscious doesn't believe what's true. It believes what's repeated, so what's being repeated around you. This is where most people fail, not in belief, but in atmosphere. They do the inner work, but their environment is still screaming the old narrative. They meditate, then scroll garbage. They speak power, then entertain weakness. They write visions, then spend time with people who mock dreams. And they wonder why the change won't stick. But this isn't a mystery. It's math. You cannot outspeak what you constantly absorb. You cannot rewire your identity while reinforcing the old one with every surrounding input. So change it. Start now. Clean your space like your future self is moving in tomorrow, because he is. Remove every object that reminds you of delay, disorder, or distraction. Curate your inputs with violent intentionality. If it doesn't build your mindset, it doesn't belong on your screen. If it doesn't elevate your frequency, it doesn't deserve your attention. Audit your circle in silence. You don't have to explain. You don't owe anyone justification. Just adjust the access. This is not about canceling people. It's about calibrating your life. Peace is more valuable than presence. Alignment is more vital than approval. Once you've cleared the noise, build the frequency. Speak your vision out loud. Write it. Declare it. Identify the kind of minds you want to attract, then become that person first. Start pouring into others the very energy you want returned. Be the one who multiplies. Be the one who sharpens. Be the one who speaks fire, not fear. Because greatness doesn't just come from discipline. It comes from proximity. You sit with kings, you learn how to rule. You walk with builders, you start building. You align with power, and suddenly your posture changes. And when your energy changes, so does everything else. From this moment forward, speak this with finality. I do not allow weak energy in my atmosphere. Say it until it becomes muscle memory. Say it until your presence commands a different room. Say it until your subconscious builds walls around your standards. Because you've spent too long watering dead conversations, too long protecting history at the expense of destiny, too long adjusting your volume to make small minds feel comfortable. That ends here. You are now curating your reality, guarding your frequency, building a life that your future self can walk into without apology. You don't bend anymore. You build. You don't react anymore. You rise. Your circle is clean. Your inputs are intentional. Your energy is sacred, and anything not aligned can't sit at your table. There is a secret law among the great ones, a law that's almost invisible to the outside world, but felt in every room they enter. It's not just about doing more. It's about doing more, with no expectation of return. They over-deliver not because they're trying to impress the world, but because they've built an identity that requires it. While others calculate the bare minimum, they show up overflowing. They give beyond the ask. They build beyond what's seen. And that's the very reason the world keeps circling back to them. Because excellence is magnetic. Most people operate with a transaction mindset. What do I get if I give this? What's the payoff if I go all in? But that's a scarcity identity in disguise. That's someone who hasn't yet upgraded from effort to essence. See, when over-delivery becomes your identity, not a tactic, everything changes. You stop counting the cost and start counting the opportunities to bring value. You stop chasing recognition and start flowing in contribution. You detach from outcome and obsess over output. And that's the shift that separates the average from the undeniable. Napoleon Hill saw this firsthand in the men who reshaped industries. Charles M. Schwab didn't just manage steel, he managed people through generosity of spirit. Andrew Carnegie didn't just build empires, he over-delivered in mentorship, knowledge, and opportunity. Henry Ford didn't just create a car, he created an entire system to make that car more accessible to millions. None of them did just enough. They did what was unseen, unasked, unpaid for, and that's why their names outlived their lifetimes. But here's the real insight. They didn't do it to be remembered. They did it because it was who they were. That's what you need to absorb. Over-delivery is not an act. It's not a trick. It's not a motivational high. It is a coded identity upgrade. It's when you stop trying to impress and start becoming impossible to forget. Because when you show up consistently with more energy, more clarity, more intention than anyone asked for, people don't just respect you, they depend on you. This is where your shift must happen. Most are taught to match the energy of the room, but the one who rewires identity understands, I set the energy of the room. I don't give what's expected. I give what's uncommon. I don't wait for permission. I arrive already delivering more than anyone imagined, and I do it without speaking about it. No announcement, no scoreboard, just silent excellence repeated until it becomes reputation. And here's the paradox. When you detach from reward, reward chases you, because people trust what's consistent. They invest in what feels like overflow. They follow the ones who carry surplus spirit. That's what makes you unforgettable. Not your title, not your pitch, not even your vision. It's the invisible impression left by radical, consistent over-delivery. A silent imprint that echoes long after the conversation ends. But you won't get there if you keep measuring effort in teaspoons. If you keep asking, is this enough? If you keep checking who's watching, that's the ego talking. And the ego cannot sustain greatness. It burns out. It fluctuates. It needs applause. But identity is different. Identity works in silence. Identity shows up before the crowd, during the storm, after the reward. It doesn't need eyes on it. It's wired to bring excellence, because anything less feels unnatural. Ask yourself, what would happen if I gave beyond my current level? What if I became the person who delivers gold in rooms where people expect bronze? What if every space I entered remembered me not because I was loud, but because I was valuable? Because I solved more problems than I created? Because I exceeded expectations not just once, but as a way of life? That's the standard you're installing today. You are no longer someone who waits for direction. You are direction. You no longer ask what's required. You define it by how you show up. And when people wonder how you do it, they'll realize it's not technique. It's not strategy. It's not training. It's identity. You are the type who gives more, who moves first, who delivers results when others deliver excuses. And the beauty of it is this: you no longer depend on outcomes. You don't need the reward to act. You don't need validation to lead. Because when giving becomes your nature, success becomes inevitable, not forced, not frantic, inevitable. You become the kind of person who over-delivers even when no one's watching, and that's exactly why the right people start watching. Detach from results. Attach to identity. That's the mantra now. You exceed expectations because it's who you are. You give more because it feels wrong to do anything less. You aren't just chasing success, you're installing character. That character is what sustains you when results take time. That character is what builds reputation when no one's clapping yet. That character is what keeps doors opening long after others quit. Because over-delivering isn't just about the extra email, the follow-up, or the late-night grind. It's about giving more spirit, more precision, more heart. It's about showing up to the smallest task like the world is watching, even when it's not. And the ones who build legacy, the ones who become irreplaceable, the ones who walk in rooms and shift the atmosphere, those are the ones who live this principle like it's breath, not just in business, but in everything. In how they speak, in how they listen, in how they take care of themselves, in how they clean their space, in how they treat people who can't give them anything back. It's all over delivery. It's all identity. And when that becomes your operating system, everything around you starts to shift. Opportunities show up because they feel your standard. People promote you without asking. Referrals come uninvited. Doors open without knocking, because you became the answer, not the asker. You became the source, not the seeker. You became undeniable by becoming the giver in a world of takers. So let this be your daily code. Now, I exceed expectations, because it's who I am. Not to earn worth, not to chase applause, not to hustle for validation, but because giving more, being more, is your natural state. Say it again. I exceed expectations because it's who I am. Say it until it feels like truth. Say it until it reshapes how you show up in every moment. You don't just do what's asked. You build beyond it. You don't just try to win. You live like you already are. Because now, your performance isn't conditional, it's character-driven. Your work isn't reactive, it's identity-powered. And your greatness is no longer on delay, it's in motion. It's in everything you touch. It's in every word you speak. Because you've become the one who gives more, who builds more, who delivers more. And that kind of person can't be denied. You don't become the chosen one by chance. You become it by choice, repeated daily, until that choice becomes a code. And that code becomes your core, and your core becomes your reality. This is the lock-in, the final seal, the moment the line is drawn, not in sand, but in steel. No more toggling between versions. No more rehearsing the old script in private. That self is gone. What lives now is you, activated, awake, unshakable. This is not about becoming. This is about remembering who you were before the world talked you out of it. Repetition is the language of the subconscious. Ritual is how that language gets burned into your bones. Without it, the world will reprogram you. Without it, the noise wins. Without it, the old self waits like a ghost at the door, whispering lies in your weaker moments. That's why your new identity must be repeated, not once, but daily, out loud, with certainty, not as a wish, but as a reality you are reinforcing. You don't say affirmations because you're trying to believe them. You say them because your future already does. Napoleon Hill made it plain. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But the secret is in the repetition. Belief doesn't arrive from thin air. It is installed, drilled, echoed, until your subconscious accepts it as law. You're not just reprogramming thoughts. You're anchoring a frequency. You're rehearsing the outcome until your nervous system treats it like history. This is why most fail. They speak a new vision once and expect their life to change. But repetition is the access point. Faith in action is the fuel. Every morning now, before the world touches your energy, your ritual begins. You rise, not just from sleep, but from doubt. You look in the mirror and speak yourself into alignment, not with timid words, but with fire. I move with certainty. I lead with purpose. I exceed expectation. I walk like it's already done. You write your vision, not as a fantasy, but as a report, a status update from the reality your future self is already living. You write it until it becomes memory, until it no longer feels like hope, but obligation, because that's what faith really is, not just believing it can happen, behaving like it already has. This is the power they never taught you. That identity isn't created in one decision. It's forged in consistent, repetitive micro-actions. The brushing of your spirit, the alignment of your posture, the tone in your voice when you say,
I don't shrink.
I command. These are the silent contracts you make with your destiny. They don't need applause. They don't need witnesses, but they reshape your reality from the inside out. You've seen the lies the world runs on. Noise, distraction, urgency without purpose. But your life now runs on ritualized power, on inner governance. You don't wait for clarity anymore. You generate it. You don't wait for permission. You walk as if you were born with it, because now you understand. It was never about having the evidence. It was always about carrying the energy. You don't receive when it happens. You receive when you align. Faith in action is when your energy no longer matches your environment, but your vision. When your words, your movement, your focus all point to what's coming, not what's around you. You walk like it's yours. You move like it's done. You operate like the outcome already happened. Because in the unseen world, it has. You're not chasing alignment. You are alignment. You're not requesting access. You are the access. So when they ask, what changed? You won't need to explain. Your energy will answer for you. Let them wonder. Let them question the glow. Let them gossip about the shift they can't explain. You owe no one proof. You are the proof. Because when your rituals lock in, your results don't just grow, they compound. Every repetition deepens the identity. Every declaration rewires the pattern. Every action, no matter how small, echoes into the unseen, creating a ripple of inevitable return. You don't need more motivation. You need more consistency. You don't need more information. You need repetition. You don't need more strategy. You need more faith in action, because you already know who you are now, the chosen one, the silent weapon, the one they fear because he doesn't need to announce himself. He moves like it's finished. This is how it looks. You speak power before the evidence shows up. You act with faith before the door opens. You walk into the room like the outcome already knows your name. You hold no backup plan. You serve no lesser identity. You've burned the bridge, aligned the circle, exceeded the standard, and now you lock it in. Every single day, this isn't hype. This is your new normal. You don't chase momentum anymore. You create it. You don't hope the day goes your way. You dominate it before it begins. Because ritual isn't routine, it's identity reinforcement. And you are reinforcing the version of you that doesn't waver, doesn't wait, doesn't shrink. So from this day forward, you repeat what your future already knows. I act like it's done. I walk like it's already mine. I act like it's done. I walk like it's already mine. I act like it's done. I walk like it's already mine.